if he committed the crime, he has to answer for it. Said it was an illegal rendition.
And helping and assisting arresting El Mayo.
That's exactly right, yeah. A big, powerful guy in the Caro Quintero organization.
In some way, shape, or form, are working with the U.S. government.
Basically kidnap citizens and fly them to the U.S. He arrived at an airport near El Paso at 4 p.m.
And correct me if I'm wrong, at the Santa Teresa airport, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. So
I know it well.
Yeah, okay. So is that a certain modus operandi if the US are going to say, okay, you want to fly to an airport, that's a good one to fly into for strategic purposes. In terms of timing, it's a good time to come into because, you know, if we're doing these kind of things, that's wherever we can coordinate better than in terms of how the flight radars, whatever. But it's you know, what is the US role? And this questions is going to come up in the court case, but is, you know, they're going to, you know, in the case of the rendition of that doctor, first of all, a lower court said it was an illegal rendition and we can't put him on trial. Then the Supreme Court said, however he was brought into the country, if he committed the crime, he has to answer for it. And there was a big international discussion over this because it was like, okay, how come, you know, you can just like basically kidnap citizens and fly them to the US?
Right.
But, you know, whatever, you know, you're fighting, you know, you can see people who can also say, well, we've got to fight these people with the gloves off. What is questionable is, so there's actually among the US agencies, there's territorial battles. And this seemed to be more an operation by FBI and Homeland Security investigations, and the DEA a little bit, you know, not really quite as involved in this. Are you working and making a deal and getting these gangsters, getting this cartel, the Chapitos, to do your arrest for you?
This gets crazy. So I'm gonna interject one more time, or a couple times, I'm sure. But so right now, there's a thought that El Chapo and the Chapitos might have been a part of assisting in the arrest.
Yeah. Well, they carried out the kidnapping, and they handed him into U.S. authorities. So they effectively made the arrest on behalf of the Americans.
And so they, in some way, shape, or form, are working with the U.S. government. I will say it again, in some way, shape, or form, they're working with the U.S. government in support and helping and assisting arresting El Mayo.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Jeez almighty. Okay, I'm going to ask this.
I mean, so what the U.S. defense will be is, and they'll say, oh, we didn't know they were going to do this.
Right.
They just gave us a call and said, we want to land a plane. And they handed us El Mayo. But that's hard, as you know yourself. Do you have to kind of
I know this world really well, so I'm just trying to be mindful about how I ask these questions now. But for you, for your intel, for the information, do you know which three-letter agencies were in assistance of this?
Yes,
the ones you mentioned.
Yes, sure. So this is the people. The top of this was FBI. This is like the people negotiating. So there was you have Joaquin Guzman Jr., who's the guy who was on the plane with him and handed himself in and is cooperating. And his cooperation seemed to be set up between FBI agents and him, who are the ones discussing this. And HSI are also having involvement, and DEA have something, but they're more on the backseat of it.
Order now. The two women who were killed and found dismembered in Juarez on Sunday were from El Paso.
On the southern border, there is a legal concept known as reasonable fear, a lifeline for those fleeing violence.
A Texas couple was found tortured and murdered.
Police say so far this month, 11 women have been killed in Juarez.
And then their bodies or body parts offered up to Santa Muerte as an offering. She represents death.
In this special Borderland docuseries, I take a deep dive onto true crime stories. Join me as we uncover the truth about the fear behind the crisis.
This was a group of powerful people.
Never been seen before in Mexico.
Evidence of ritualistic elements.
We ended up rescuing almost 200 kids.
The discovery of multiple women in mass graves.
They're almost in every state.
When you put it together, you have an economic extortion map.
But even more violent.
Now that this information is out there, is this creating kind of that civil war between the Mayos and the Chapitos currently?
Yeah, so then what happens is, so one question people ask is, if this happened, how come there's not this mad war in Sinaloa?
Right.
These guys, the Chapitos, just kidnapped El Mayo. What happened was El Mayo, so his son, called El Mayito Flaco, is the name of his son who's now running the operation, had to plan for this revenge. These guys are smart enough not just to think, okay, I'm going to send out a bunch of gunmen and you're waiting for me and we're going to kill you. They've got to think, okay, how do we plan this? How do we work out alliances? So just after 6 weeks later, on Monday, September the 9th, this Sinaloan civil war, a civil war in the cartel, erupted. I had a very good source, another story I had out on this from a very good source about a meeting that happened 1 week before it kicked off, cementing the alliances. There was negotiations which started happening right away, but they got to September the 2nd, and there was a meeting in a part of Sinaloa, a municipality called Badiraguato, which is the mountainous municipality where Chapo Guzman is from, where Rafael Caro Quintero is from, Beltran, many of the big traffickers are from there. And there was a meeting there between Mayito Flaco, the son of El Mayo, a big, powerful guy in the Caro Quintero organization. If anyone familiar with this guy, Rafael Caro Quintero, he's a very, very famous narco, currently incarcerated, but their family are still big players. A guy called Jose Gil